Growing up playing Zelda games, Mario games, games where you're in control of a squeaky clean hero character, for the longest time it never occurred to me that there were any other options. You very rarely see games where you're in control of someone unrelentingly evil, and that's a shame. Sometimes you need to see things from a different perspective to get the full picture. There's a worry these days that you're only ever being told what you need to know, so it's up to you to go out of your way in pursuit of the other side of the story. You know these video games, right? Sit down for hours at a time and defeat all the evil in the world? Yeah, I can get behind that, and it's clearly very popular, but I do find that some villains don't put up much of a fight. Yes, I can do better. At the end of the day, playing as a villain is a power fantasy with application. A lot of the time in normal games you find yourself at the height of your powers, and I always wondered why you couldn't then use some of it to get what you wanted. Being able to focus entirely on yourself and not worrying about the world around you is frankly refreshing anytime it shows up and tends to turn heads. These games saved me from doing this in real life. For that, they deserve much credit. I think it's important to distinguish the difference between games where you're forced into playing the villain and ones where you have a choice. Morality systems do a great job of helping you craft a character that reflects what actions you performed in a game, but I think there's still a lot of mileage in being strung along on a quest that isn't as noble as you might be used to. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, everything just goes horribly wrong. That's right, for those of you playing along at home, you can cross off Spec Ops Villainy on your bingo card. I mean, it's the middle square, so it's just a matter of time. The original mission of Spec Ops is to investigate Dubai after a massive sandstorm and work out if anyone's still alive and what to do after that. It's only after doing a bit of snooping that your main character decides to take the fight to the perceived threat in the area, and things start getting a bit out of hand. And when I say a bit, I actually mean things couldn't have gone any worse. As soon as you realise that your task in Spec Ops Villainy isn't necessarily a righteous one, you start reanalysing the moments that led up to the eventual conclusion, where you realise that the player-controlled Captain Walker is the closest thing the game has to an antagonist, and you try and work out what was the biggest tell. With the benefit of hindsight, it's probably destroying Dubai's remaining water supply, which seemed like such a great idea at the time, but in reality is as bad as it sounds. Even though the player and Captain Walker seemingly don't embrace being thrust into the role of villain, I find it interesting how smooth the transition is. Walker starts executing opponents in more aggressive ways, the combat starts to slip into a more traditional military shooter style, and you almost don't notice that the guys you're gunning down are now just a little bit scared of you. Spec Ops mentions that you had a choice in a lot of these scenarios, but it's not that kind of game. There's no morality system and you don't get too many choices to decide on an outcome. Nah, what it means and what the developers hint at is you always had the option of putting the controller down and walking away. A video game that actively encourages you to step away from it. That's the most evil thing I've ever heard. There's some pretty big upsides to playing as the villain in a video game. For a start, you never have to worry about if each action is technically the right thing to do. You know, it's nice playing the hero sometimes, but everyone judges you on your ability to keep the peace, and do I look qualified to you? In some games, fighting on the other side of the conflict comes with added skill bonuses, and suddenly you can drain life force, and shoot lightning from your fingertips, and generally use satanic powers to kill your family. I mean, someone had to. After how buggy and unintentionally hilarious the second game was, I kind of forgot how much fun I had with the first Lucius game. Pretty much because I can't remember playing a game like it that is so relentlessly evil in tone. Usually there's some pretense of trying to do the right thing, but you've got the son of the devil who needs to become stronger by murdering people, and the nearest mortals are family and servants, so how could you not? You get a decent amount of freedom in how you dispose of people too. Obviously, if you can make it look like an accident, that's preferable, but you can always just throw fireballs at them and see what happens. I can guess what happens. Lucius himself has the same vacant expression on the whole time, so you can really get into the character of a psychotic murderer. It's these kind of silent blank slate protagonists that appeal to me, the video gamer person man. It can be hard sometimes to fill in the blanks while playing Lucius, but all that means is that the game is encouraging you to experiment with how you kill people. Effectively, you're playing a puzzle game where you brutally murder innocent people en masse with a great deal of creativity and variety, and it's about damn time! When you're looking through a library, or really just a list of games, it's not always that easy to work out what tone the game is going for from just seeing a name. What importance is there in a name? absolutely fuck all, but sometimes you get games like Anarchy Reigns and you can probably work that out. ARMS, for example, that's not particularly difficult either. But in the world where people care about this as much as I do, Destroy All Humans gives you a good indication of what kind of game it is, what kind of themes that it will tackle, and of course, the goals that will help to define your journey. No one's ever asked what you do in this game. I like not having to think. Mind you, it's not quite the merciless goal you might imagine it to be. Not quite the noble pursuit of making the world a better place, and more like harvesting the brainstems of humans to stop the alien race you belong to from going extinct, which I personally consider to be enough justification for all this senseless violence. And it really is a great, wonderfully cathartic setup, since from the ground it looks and kind of is a simple alien invasion. But no, there's some thought and selflessness behind it that you can empathize with. Still, you would need to prepare a convincing argument that Crypto, the alien guy you control, isn't the villain here. Certainly there isn't a hardened antagonist for you to work towards, and you're never challenged too hard, so this game serves a stark reminder of how ill-equipped the 1950s were to cope with an alien invasion. It's okay, we do fine these days. We'd reach a mutual appreciation of memes and go our separate ways. Peace in our time. Once you've played one fantasy-style RPG, you've probably played them all. There's small differences in setting and general approach, but you look at the horizon, you probably see glory and scope for adventure, but where's the game for the person who wants to sit in their castle and get their underlings to do all the work for them? You should know by now, there is a game for everybody. I remember a period in time where you could use the word minion to describe loyal henchmen and not be reminded of yellow Tic Tacs. Overlord is a game from that glorious period of time that asks the very simple question that everyone's been looking for an answer to. What if we combined Fable with Pikmin and made you the bad guy? What if we give you 7 heroes to fight, except they've been corrupted by bad things, and it's your job as an even worse thing to take back the land and spread your dominion to all 4 corners of the world? It's an obvious parody of these kinds of games, but it's used to really enhance the experience by allowing everything to act as some kind of on-running joke. Not really a game to take seriously. And yet, it technically breaks one of the rules of this video, but not in a major way. The comparisons with Fable aren't just aesthetics. Overlord actually gives you a decent amount of freedom with your choices in the game, which then pile up to have a greater effect overall. But that's the thing, rather than like in other titles where the game would clearly prefer that you stay a hero, the whole nature of Overlord is aligned towards evil, so if you're not killing innocent people, you're going against what the game wants you to do. Personally, I think a better path to go down is to corrupt the Overlord as much as possible and grow your army of minions to ridiculous levels. Then they can weave their way into every facet of modern culture and grow as a horrendous parasite that can't be shaken off due to the symbiotic relationship they have with their host. We still talking about video games, right? When playing as a villain in a video game, the primary benefit is that you don't have to concern yourself with what each action is doing to the bigger picture. Of course, games that work in that fashion are fun in a different way, but you can often feel restricted by what might be remembered and used against you later. Anyone who's gone ham in Skyrim knows that feeling. If you're looking for a video game that acts as an escape from reality and allows you to experience something that you would have never dreamed of, God of War's been walking that path for a while now. It was never meant to be a trilogy, and you can see this in how the first God of War handles its plot. There's an overarching theme of revenge and how Kratos seeks retribution for the death of his family and how he hates being a servant of gods who've betrayed him in the past. So he works his way up the ranks, getting stronger all the time and kicks the crap out of Ares, the God of War, and takes his place. Simple, effective, I'd even argue that in this game, Kratos is close to being a protagonist. Then I think he got bored. Not quite that easy, but in the following games there's definitely a shift towards an angrier Kratos with less care given to who or what he slices up. In the games that came after, there's no impending threat for humanity or a clear antagonist that Kratos has to stop. It's more about continuing the task of killing all the Greek gods and doing so with no remorse but plenty of style. This is where God of War takes off as a franchise. The first game is really good, but with no restrictions on Kratos' brutality, the sequels embrace his new role as a playable antagonist. Lots of people die in these games, and they do so having not done a lot wrong. In most other games that would make Kratos an unrelatable character, but with his absurd power in the palm of your hands, you find yourself swept up in the moment. I don't mind who Kratos ends up decapitating as long as you can continue fighting impossibly large monsters and one-on-one confrontations with powerful gods. It's called knowing your strengths. This being RabbidLuigi and Kratos acting as the villain in the original trilogy leads me to approach the new God of War with a decent amount of caution. They've moved to Norse mythology because they've kind of run out of ideas with the Greek setting, but also because they've run out of Greek gods to kill. And now he's got a son or an apprentice or something, and I just wonder, is he going to be as bad? It's probably not the best role model. Have you got an idea that you'd like me to turn to a countdown? Let me know in a comment down below, and make sure you check out my Twitter, where I'll be turning the best submissions into a poll where you can then decide the best topic. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that. I asked for some top 5 suggestions to restock my ideas bank, and you lot delivered very nicely. Sometimes I get to Sunday when I do the top 5 poll and nothing comes to mind and I didn't make notes of suggestions and it's all very messy, but now I've got more to play with, so everything's looking rosier. Also, I got the results back from my English tests I need to take to move to Canada, and wouldn't you know it, turns out I can communicate quite nicely in English, so I can basically fuck off to Canada now. We'll work something out nearer the time, can't leave you people with nothing to watch now, can I? There's a degree of responsibility.